found was that people talked about the ordeals that they suffered at the hands of the police. They talked about the ostracisation that they suffered from the communities, the lack of support in terms of their financial hardships and in terms of their health and well-being, really.
Presumably for some of these families, women, when you say women, you mean wives and the children. If the person is convicted, they may not have known about what was happening. I mean, how many of the women and children you spoke to were aware of what had been going on?
None of them knew what was going on. This was when the police first arrived at the earlier hours of the morning. That's the first time they knew that something was wrong. So the people who were actually suspected of terrorism had never shared any of what they've been doing, or if they've been doing anything at all.
What about the experiences of these women and families further down the line? If someone is kept in prison, suspected or convicted, what are their lives like?
Once the person has been taken, the spotlight is on the family. You have to remember again that the whole area is usually cordoned off. When there is a raid, then neighbours know about it. So the immediate reaction of people around them is that we don't want anything to do with them. If they've been charged with terrorism or suspected of terrorism, most of the relatives and the friends will not want anything to do with these women and children. So they're left isolated, they're left alone, they're not able to support themselves. Most of these women, again, that I met, not all of them, but most of them, they'd only been here a few years and they were not aware of where the schools are or where the local shopping areas were, because these are things that they did with their husbands, and to do them alone was a new task that they had to take on. So all of a sudden they turned into single parents. The long-term effect of this was the isolation ended up in women being depressed, the children being bullied at school and within the neighbourhood. Their families and friends don't want anything to do with them because they are held by most of the community as guilty by association, or because people fear that if they have anything to do with these families, they too will be held guilty by association. So they don't want anything to do with them. It's understandable that people are fearful, but people do need to know that these are victims of the war on terror.
It's interesting you use the word victims because obviously, I mean, most recently we've had the case of Lee Rigby. There have been big cases that have been quite horrific in this country. And so there may be some people listening to this who are going to think, well, why should I care? You know, I'm glad that the police are doing something. I'm glad that the police are trying to make sure that something doesn't happen to me and my family and my country.
It is a fair enough thing to say, and we should be, the state has a responsibility to ensure that we are safe. However, these are children and women who have nothing to do with terrorism, who are totally innocent, who've not known what has gone on, and yet we treat them as though they are terrorists.
Primarily wives, but obviously we have mothers, we have daughters, we have young children, those who've been completely demonized by association with their family member who's been arrested under terrorism charges. They are intimidated, they are bullied, they've had doors broken down, they've had the trauma of going through a police terror raid. These children require psychological help, they require counselling. When a terror conviction happens, you will have, in certain cases, demonstrations taking place outside the family home. You'll have children being bullied at school. You'll have women being afraid to come outside the front door because of the media presence, because of neighbours intimidating them. And we want to give a voice to these people. We want them to show the world that they are human beings just like everybody else. Irrespective of what somebody does in their life, the family members are innocent. The children, what crime did they commit? What crime did the wife commit? What crime did elderly parents commit? These are the people we are supporting and trying to get through this trauma. In any criminal sentence for theft or robbery or rape, there will be family members who are suffering, and there's always going to be a support network available for them. Unfortunately, with HHUGS, the families we provide help for, there's nothing there for them. HHUGS is the only charity who are helping them.